Chris, big breaking news from the tennis world today. Tennis legend, Spaniard, Rafael Nadal is retiring. He has announced his retirement for after the Davis Cup finals in Malaga. The end of the season, he came out with a very touching, emotional video message today. He said, I'm here to let you know I'm retiring from professional tennis. The reality is that it has been some difficult years, the last two especially. I don't think I have been able to play without limitations. We are here. We're going to be talking very quickly about this retirement. What are your reactions to the news?
I mean, we were expecting potentially a retirement this season. He did talk about it, obviously, last year that this could be his final season. He kept us all guessing. And when it came to Malaga and his inclusion, I think we all thought home, Davis Cup, playing for his country, this could be it. And I think making it official just means this is going to be quite the spectacle and a really fitting way for him to leave the sport.
And when you were reading the message, the video message, how were you feeling with this news? Because Rafael Nadal, he's been a fabric of tennis for the last couple of decades. He's been a role model, he's been a leader, he's been a champion many
Mm.
times over. How are you feeling kind of taking this news in?
Well, as you say, reading was what I was doing because my Spanish is not what it once was when I did
Yes.
a very low level education in Spanish at GCSE in the UK. But Kim would have been able to understand it. I I was very emotional. I think it's not so much necessarily the fact that he is retiring and not getting to see him play again. I think it's much more just how much he's achieved. I think sometimes you forget about it when you think about these sporting
Mm.
icons that they're not they're not just incredible at what they do. They're also people, and he's a person who's done some incredible things with the support of his family. And the story is unbelievable. So I did get a bit emotional, probably about the same level of emotions as Rafa in that one. Didn't quite have the single tear going down my cheek,
Yeah,
Joel.
I yeah, I mean, I as an Andy Murray fan, I think I still got emotional at this message, but it wasn't kind of full
Were you
blown
waiting for Murray to
tears
be
at
included?
Wimbledon. Yes, yes. But I mean, I think just talking about it. I mean, as you say, the achievements that he has accomplished, 22 time Grand Slam champion, all those
Mm,
King of Clay, all his dominance at Roland Garros. I think, for me, what's sad, just kind of reflecting on this and the kind of the messages he's been saying is that although he's achieved so much, these superhuman achievements, it just reminds me that he is human.
mm,
Injuries have caught up with him. He spoke about the fact that the last 2 years he has not been able to play without limitations,
mm,
and there comes a time for everyone, regardless of how amazing they are. And it's incredible that I think we've had Rafa
mm.
for so long, because I feel like this conversation around his injuries has been almost kind of a yearly recurrence, throughout his career.
Yeah.
So to have as much time we have had with him, I still think is also a blessing.
It is. And remember all the commentators that said the way he plays, his knees wouldn't last, he wouldn't be
Mm,
able to have a long career. And I mean, he won slams as recently as 2022. He won two
yeah.
slams that year. So I think we have to remember that this really is the body stopping as opposed to him not being able to play well at any age. It is definitely physically he's unable to compete in the same way. And that was definitely a case that you can see this year. The realization of that has been dawning on
Yeah.
him. I think sometimes we've seen in press conferences, and I was very, very lucky to watch so many matches of his in Bostar, get to ask him questions after the match. But we have seen, it's a tough year for him. The realization that he's not going to have the final year he hoped for. He's not going to be able to kind of have the farewell or the fanfare of like winning another title. He lost quite convincingly in that final. So I think it's been really tough for him to process that he is human and he is very much not able to keep going. It's not possible. And I think a question I put to you, Joel, would be if his body was still able to function the way that he would like, would he keep on playing, or is this the right time for him in other ways as well? Do you think?
Personally, I would have liked to see him retire at Roland Garros, at the French Open. We saw with Andy Murray, it was a very fitting send off at
Mm,
Wimbledon. And I personally think that that would have been more fitting than the Davis Cup. I get that it's in Malaga, it is home. He's going to be surrounded by absolutely everyone, sold out crowds. But to
Us.
me, us exactly, yeah, we will be there. Well, hopefully. But yeah, I personally think I think from me, what he's given back to tennis, I think it would have been more fitting for him to retire at the
Mm,
French Open. And it's quite interesting actually because Richard Gasquet, another of his generation, has announced his retirement today, but he has said he is carrying on
mm.
until Roland Garros next year. So for me, I personally would have liked to have seen him try and get through to, maybe Roland Garros 2025,
Yeah.
or even, in hindsight, would it have made more sense to have, retired in the moment, this season there and
Yeah.
then?
I
What
think
what
I
do you
can
think?
see
What do you
that.
think
Yeah.
about that in terms of, as I say, Davis Cup? Is that a fitting send off,
Mm.
or yeah, are there other
Well,
moments?
we asked the question in press to him in Bostar about his US Open participation. And it was clear that he put himself on the entry list purely because if he didn't, then he wouldn't be able to play it if he chose to play it. And I really think those decisions, as he said then, are happening almost a week before. He's not sure. And I don't think he ever had a plan for this year. It was to see how this year goes
Mm.
and then look for a suitable send off. So, say, for instance, if at the start of the year, he didn't get injured and he kept going, there was a chance I think he could have played next year. So I think it's almost been like looking for the right place or having a backup send off. Potentially that was Malaga if he was fit, knowing that it was going to be held in the same location as last year when that became an option for his retirement. So I think he really hasn't known, and he hasn't known how his body will hold up.
Mm.
And so he didn't know where he'd be able to have the perfect send off. And I think he really was hoping to play the French next year, but it's just not possible. And when you balance your life and your family and what you're able to do, it must be very difficult not being able to play how you could have. But he did mention that one of his best memories was in Seville when he won the Davis Cup in 2004 as a youngster. He was put in sort of last minute into that team facing against Andy Roddick, and they won that title. And that was also at home. So it's almost bookending a career. And I think being at home will allow him to be celebrated in the way that he should be. I think he'll have more say in how that happens. I think maybe we've seen a few celebrations. Actually, maybe that's
Yeah.
not. Yeah, because they didn't have the banners at Madrid. Remember, Joel?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
had them ready to roll down, and then he said, "No, I'm not. I don't want to do it." So
Well,
maybe
let's
he's saving up
let's
for that.
let's hope it's more of a fitting tribute than I guess what Carlos Suarez Navarro got when she got that video where we were we were
Four
there in
people. Yeah.
yeah around at midnight. I mean, just talking about Nadal in the context of the big three, because there'll be
Mm,
many people talking about the fact that Federer retired, Nadal has now announced his retirement. The fact that also Djokovic, although he hasn't retired, didn't win a Grand Slam this year, and
mm,
then they were all shared by Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. What do you think this moment, this retirement means for the big three? Is this effectively the end of the big three?
mm.
Or how do you kind of contextualize it to them?
Well, I think Federer went out when he realized that he wasn't able to play at the level that he wanted to be and that he wouldn't be able to get himself back to the level of competing, hence the Laver Cup goodbye.
Mm,
Not really playing for a year prior to that because of injury and surgery that he had. And I think that tends to be how this sort of goes. So I think with Djokovic, as long as he's able to still be competing and feels like he's in for a shot, I think we can see him probably playing um, more than he has been. I wasn't expecting him to play in Shanghai, so he's still hungry. He won a gold
yeah.
medal this year, so I think now it's about the generations competing against each other, and that's what makes tennis so exciting. It's the Alcarazes versus the Sinners.
Mm,
It's the old gen, new gen. And I think that's something really compelling about that we're getting to see play out. In terms of Nadal going out, I actually do think it's been a very respectable exit. I think having won slams in 2022, I think you're excused a 2023 season where you weren't able to play. And then having a go of it in 2024, he's had a go, and I think he's found the answer. So I do think it signals a new time for tennis. I think a lot of the big three conversations will be behind us now because Djokovic has gone past everyone from a record perspective, and now it will be can Djokovic complete with the new big two
yeah.
potentially might be
Yeah.
the what we're looking at.
I'm still getting used to seeing him as like the fourth seed
It's so
in the
strange.
draws. Yeah, you almost forget he's actually playing because you sort of look, is
Top
he
of
at
the
the
draw
top of the
sheet.
draw?
Yeah.
Is he at the bottom of the draw sheet? No. Oh, he's not but actually, yeah. So yeah, it is interesting how that rivalry could go more intergenerational, and who knows, maybe we do come up to this maybe is ushering in a new era. I mean, just talking about Rafa,
Mm,
what do you think, his greatest achievement to tennis
mm,
has been? We talked about his career, longevity of his career, the records in his career. What
hmm.
stands out to you?
I mean, for me, the 14 French Opens is an unbelievable achievement, and that's something that I never think will be broken. I mean, it stands alone in terms of records in tennis. And although
Mm,
he might not have, an end of season finals, he might not have completed every part of tennis like Djokovic has. I think that is just an unbelievable feat, especially at Roland Garros on the clay. And I think it's the grit and determination and passion that he had. And that's something that I think is actually really incredible about his story is that you can never say, for example, with Rafael Nadal, and he said it himself, that he knows that he's given everything that he could have, and I think that's something that's really interesting about the quotes from that video is that he gave everything, every point he gave everything. And that's something that's so inspiring for so many people. And so many players now could take a lesson from that because, take a Holger Rune, switches off or gets annoyed at a point,
hmm
doesn't get the next one. He was so focused, he was so determined, and his passion for the sport, the Vamoses that we see, I think that was really something that's inspiring. So I'd say it's the level that he applied himself at, but also the French Open. I mean, he's won the same number of French Opens as Pete Sampras, who
Yeah,
was the record holder for Slam titles on one surface.
I
It's
know. Ju-
unbelievable.
I mean, just to give some stats, 14-time French Open singles champion. He won 112 of 116 major matches at Roland Garros. Phenomenal
Wow.
statistics. I would just like to throw in also that win against Daniel Medvedev at the Australian Open, which in terms of, as I say, finals and spectacle, that was to me that stands out. Also, what is often kind of talked about as one of the greatest tie breaks ever against
Yeah.
against Rafa Nadal, against
Yeah.
Roger Federer, in Wimbledon, I think
Yeah.
2009, 2008,
That
2009.
was an amazing one. I do think I mean, there's so many of those moments that have just been incredible, but I do
Mm,
think a special mention has to go to 2022 because what he achieved, that was goosebumps. I could not believe that he was
I-
able to do that given the injuries he already had overcome at that point. So I think that was unbelievable, almost like Federer, in 2018 when he came back in, and well, 2017 actually, and he won a slam after a period without it. So I think
yeah.
there have been such incredible highs. I was also just going to say, in terms of, do you think that this has been inspired also by the doubles partnership with Alcaraz, that there is a real shot that he would be able to go out on a high with a strong Spanish team? Is this also something where
Mm,
it's not just going to be the one match and done? He's going to push himself, obviously, in that moment. And playing for your country, will that be the
yeah.
extra sort of adrenaline he needs to go even further than he might have been able to do if he was playing, over in the Asian swing where,
Yeah.
where no one
Well,
really seems to be
I
loving
do,
it?
I don't think Rafael Nadal knows any other way. I guess though it will be up to the captain to decide who he thinks, you know, is best suited for matches or the moment, because we've seen, for example, with the Laver Cup, Rafael Nadal, he decided to step aside because he felt there were better players playing better tennis that were more suitable for the job. So yeah,
That
it
is
will be
true, actually. He did say that.
it,
So
it
maybe
will
he thinks he is
mm.
the most suitable
But
or
I do
deserved of
think
the finale.
the greatest send off on court for me would probably be doubles with Carlitos.
Mm.
Yeah, in Malaga, home crowd. Who would not, love to see that? I mean, yeah, talking about very quickly, yeah, dream send off. Either
Mm.
in the I've said the doubles, but it could also, I guess, be in the singles as well. I mean, we know that Italy, Argentina, USA, Australia, Germany, Canada, and Netherlands, who Spain are playing in round one, are going to be there. Are there any players you would like to see,
Ooh.
face Nadal in his final match?
That is, I mean, that's tricky, isn't it? In
It's
terms of,
very tricky in terms of draw.
I think Nadal has
How long
displayed
Greeks for?
he's played well. He's played the level of tennis this year that could warrant him being selected for singles for sure. I do think doubling up would be a challenge for him physically based on what he said and his limitations. So doubles does make the most sense.
Mhm.
Having said that, I mean, who would bet against Rafael Nadal beating Talon Grookspoor? I mean, I would. I'd bet that he'd beat him. He
Yeah.
really can do anything. I think on indoor hard, the question would be it has to be doubles really because that is his least favorite
Mhm.
surface. But I do think we have to take a tiny moment more to say when Richard Gasquet announced his retirement this morning, do you think he had any idea that this would be the smallest story of the
Yeah.
day? Because someone, a certain
He's been
childhood friend
trumped.
of his, yeah, just
He's been
completely
trumped.
surpassed it. Yeah, he had. So
Yeah,
that did
PR
tickle
nightmare
me.
for
Yeah,
Richard Gasquet,
they clearly didn't text.
but yeah, I do hope that he does get that send off in Malaga that he deserves. Let's hope maybe Spain win the Davis Cup crown one more time and give Nadal the send
Sixth
off.
title, yes.
Yeah, give Nadal that send off that he deserves. We will have to wait and see. We will be in Malaga, so we're going to be there soaking up the atmosphere and the environment. We're going to be there for some Billie Jean King Cup action and some Davis Cup action as well. So yeah, we are both really looking forward to that. We're going to be back on Monday with our usual tour catch up. Kim will be with us as well to get her reaction on the Nadal retirement news. But this has been some breaking news from Tennis Weekly HQ. Goodbye.